Welcome to the Round 8 review for Supercoach 2021. My name is Jackson, and firstly I want to kick it off by saying thank you for helping me reach 1,000 subscribers. I really only started doing the YouTube thing in this pre-season, and so to be able to grow from 0 to 1,000 so quickly, I appreciate it. I hope that the advice has been useful along the way, or at a minimum, my Leon Cameron melts have provided some type of joy or entertainment for you. And in fact, this week, to really punish myself, I went and bought a front row seat to the Leon Cameron Masterclass, where I got to watch firsthand him continue to play Josh Kelly in the midfields due to injury, and watch Essendon get robbed in the process. Have a look for yourself.
Absolutely, the Crows were robbed. Right in front of me. Right in front of me.
Let us go over what the agenda for today is. So firstly, I'm going to do the round 8 review of my team, go through what worked, what didn't work, my trades. Secondly, as I guess a thank you for helping me reach 1,000 subs, I'm going to share something that I normally only share with George's Discord, which, by the way, the link to that is in the description below, so make sure you check it out. Weekly, we try and do a film review. So we take the highlights of a handful of players that are interesting that we're making decisions between, whether it's rookies or premiums or whatever it may be, and go through the film to try and make judgments. And so this week we went through some of the forward options, given how weak the forward lines are and how quickly we're looking forward to upgrading them, going through some of those cheaper options and figuring out which are the gems from the duds. And I think this week's film review was really good, the one that we've already done, and we've seen it play out a little bit already. So yeah, quite keen to go through that as a thank you. And then finally, I'll talk through some of my trade ideas for the week. But I mean, when you're traveling like I am, why would you want to listen to me? I probably wouldn't. So yeah, I guess jumping straight into the review, another really frustrating week for me, and we'll go through it, but you can see the score was pretty average, season ranks down, just hanging within the top 1,000 clearly. After a strong start, I've just faded, and it's once again all because of the rookies. And this is the first year where the rookies and trading out some of them early have punished me so badly. I mean, I really need to stop saying this week after week, but traded Jordan and Scott out after scoring like 20s and completely stalling their cash generation. Jordan's gone on to average high 80s or mid 80s since that point for 4 games. Scott's now averaging, I think he's averaged close to 70 since then. And after just putting up a 85 or something ridiculous, he's going to make a ton of money. And just not having those options on the field have really hurt. And then this week, I took Zeeble as the VC. I thought that was a pretty good, pretty unique option. And sure enough, he was on track for like a 130, got injured, that stalled out to 111. Seeing some of the other scores going around, thought better change from the loophole and go with the captain option. And I picked pretty much the worst available option. I mean, I had Bont sitting next to McRae. I didn't do that. I mean, McRae, this is his lowest score for the year. His last 2 against Carlton were 138 and 150. And sure enough, I got a 106. So very frustrating, and it's just, it's part of Supercoach. I need to learn to temper myself a little bit better, but sometimes you can make the right decisions and not get the right outcomes, and it's frustrating when it happens, but it is what it is. And then, Murphy was one of my trade-in targets this week for Chapman, with Frederick no longer being an option, and that honestly looked like a great option just after early halftime on 52, and then knocked out. So not only did I not get that 80 that I thought might have been coming from that game, but I'm also going to miss him next week, and then who knows if he even gets his job back. And I'm also at the point now where if there is any other problems with my back 6, with Murphy and Highmore, I have no cover this week, and I'm probably not in a position to trade around that, so I just cop a 0. That's very frustrating. And then secondly, my other trade, I was about 5 to 10k off being able to afford the forward target that I really wanted, which I'll go through, my number 1 ranked target for this week still. And that meant that I had to do a double downgrade. I was weighing up between Poulter and Collier Dawkins. I thought Collier Dawkins was just the person I needed after his 70 last week to bolster my midfield. And sure enough, he dropped to 43. So, I mean, thankfully I did the loophole right, and I picked McNeil over Berry and got an 80. Nope. So, yeah, just frustrating calls, just missing out a little bits of money, and then, yeah, just really hurting. So, this week is going to be a huge backward step, and compounded by Tex just being awful. I thought yes, I knew he wasn't going to continue 120s and 130s, but honestly, I thought he'd at least be able to maintain 90s, 80s through to the bye, and then could sideswap him out, and he wasn't going to be a big problem. But after dropping a 29 this week, he is a must trade out. He is bleeding cash, and unfortunately, if you've held him until this point, like I have, I mean, I said you should have traded him 2 weeks ago if you could have. I couldn't. So hopefully you did and listened to me and did what I said rather than what I do. But yeah, he's now, I think, averaged something like low 80 since I've traded him. He's shedded some of the money he gained. It's still an okay-ish trade. But now the fact that I have to stop upgrade cadence to fix that, just awful. So that's been, just a bunch of things where a little bit is things going against me. And then I think there's some stuff I could do better and there's going to be some learnings for next year. But yeah, the team's not terrible, but it just has felt really bad the last couple of weeks. So let's hope we can turn it around. So just quickly whipping through the players. Lloyd was great this week. Honestly, thought he was on track for a bigger score than what he was, but you take another 111. The funny thing is, like, despite averaging a 107 for the year, and probably he's up there with the top defenders here now, hasn't felt that great. And it's not like not starting him this year has burnt you, which has been the case in other years. You know, if you started someone like Stewart ahead of him, or even Doherty, or the Lions defender, Rich, like all these would have been just as okay options at a cheaper price point. So yeah, quite frustrating. And you know, Mills I think is posted another big score and is outdoing him. So yeah, Lloyd's been serviceable, but at his price was someone that we could have missed. A little bit frustrating. Laird had a great week. Honestly, I thought he was probably best on ground. He had something like 18 contested possessions, over 30 touches. I think the weird part about his game was he didn't have any marks, which is like really rare for Laird because he does, even in the midfield, get in some of that going action. So like a good score and bringing up his average. That's what we want to see from Laird, because once again, started him at a higher price and it hasn't really burnt non-owners. Ridley, another disappointing score. So, I mean, 488k, he's now a bargain. Being out the game, I did have a look at Ridley. So, one thing that I noticed, which may not have been on the broadcast, is he was actually cramping up early to mid third quarter behind play. It looked like it was calf cramps. He was stretching on the ground. They even had trainers run over to him at one point. And then once he got up, he seemed to be okay for the rest of the game. But that, with the knee strapping, coming off from concussion, there's a few worrying signs about Ridley that make me go, is he actually going to get back to the 110 average that we thought he could do? He may not be a must-have anymore from here on out, which, once again, is another one of those unlucky things where you pick Ridley, was a great starting option, gets concussed, and all of a sudden his scoring goes to mush. And I know there are a lot of people in unfortunate situations where they did stuff like trade Daniel to him as well. But yeah, he was like a strong defender one for the year in my mind, and I'm wavering a little bit now in the confidence. I think it could just be a 1 or 2 game thing and he gets back to some of that good form, as well as Stewart coming into the back line for Essendon has reconfigured things a little bit, so they're trying to figure out how all those pieces work together, and this is one of those things where you have a new defence like Essendon has with all these new pieces in it. Figuring out how they work together, how they get the most out of those is something that still needs to be worked through. But I still think he's a great pickup, and especially as he gets that discounted price going. But maybe not a must-have, especially if you're weighing up options like Stewart, for example, who's on like quite a good patch of form. But I guess got to weigh price into it as well. Bowes kept on, like if low 90s are his floor, you're happy with it. He should have some more high games to come, but you know isn't killing people that aren't owning him. His buy is going to be really handy though as we get through those. And Shorty, like a 98, like so. Once again, I guess like a lot of people, especially in the top 1,000, are on him, something like 80%. So him not scoring particularly well doesn't really hurt me compared to the other top ranked players, but you do want a little bit more out of them. It just feels good. Murphy I've already touched on. It looked like a great rookie. The concussion was unfortunate. I think the only thing that's going to help with his job security is 2 weeks in a row now we've seen him do some of the really courageous stuff that you want your young players to be doing that really lift your club. He had the Rewalt-esque mark going back 2 weeks ago, and then what got him concussed with his head over the ball this time. He just looks like a really hard-nosed player. He does have concussion problems now. This is not his first concussion. Once you develop that glass jaw, of anyone that watches MMA, fighting, boxing, yeah, that's hard. So he could be someone that just has chronic concussion problems now, which is a real big concern for his future going forward. But yeah, hoping he does get back in a couple weeks. And Cozzy followed up his great bag from last week, with his 80 or whatever it was with the 38 this week. Thankfully, Hawks play North this week, so he is a hold despite his break even being in the 60s. And Highmore still can't get a game. And I think they've got other people coming back now as well, like, oh no, I can't remember his name. But it's at the point now where I'm not sure if Highmore will actually play another game for this year, and I don't know what more he can do if he's being best on ground in VFL and still not getting selected. All right, so midfield. McRae was all right from what I saw, but just went missing for periods in the game, which is very un-McRae-like, and especially when the game was online, he just wasn't getting enough of it. Bont was amazing. Definitely not his cleanest game. He did have some touches that were quite messy, but then did a lot of great stuff when it came to, kicking clutch goals, chase down tackles that resulted in frees, great forward inside 50. So after picking him up last week, it was a 107 on debut, followed up by 155. We like that. We take that. And now it's 620 with that 155 in his price cycle. It's going to be very hard for non-owners to get on now. But if you did go someone like a Cam Guthrie or a Lions instead, then you're probably not too upset. They've been great pot options. Walsh had a down week this week, which is, a little bit sad, but the 89 isn't too bad. And, he's up over 600k now, so he's done well since he's debuted. Oliver was great. Didn't look like he was actually going to score a 125, but got there in the end. And Merritt was excellent for Essendon against GWS. I think his biggest problem was early on. He had a lot of inside 50 entries that were pretty messy and missed their target on some of those short kicks. Those hurt you score, but he was immense across the rest of the game in his 150th and posted a very nice 131. And Brayshaw, from what I read, was actually lucky to recover to a 70. I think he was still low 20s after half time. And I was like, is he getting tagged? Nope, just playing terribly. And from what I could see from the stats, so Brayshaw usually really rounds out his tallies with marks and tackles, usually averaging like 4+ a game on both of those, as well as going along with his possessions. And with the ball being monopolised by the Lions, he just wasn't able to get that uncontested stuff that he normally gets through marking. And I guess he just wasn't close enough for it for the tackles as well. So, definitely a down score, and we hope that fixes, because you don't want to be outscored by rookies like Tom Powell, who keeps on keeping on. The plan is definitely to try and hold him through to the buys, because he's got the good first buy and then he can provide some great on-field cover. So if you're looking at trading someone after the round 14 buy, you probably want to try and hold on to someone like a Powell through the buys, help with that cover, and then you can get rid of him at the end. Berry does not like touching the ball. He likes touching other people, just hugs them to death, which it provides some okay scores. He's not a must trade, but it's really hard to see him have a ceiling, because he's had so many shots on goal and he can't kick a single one, doesn't get enough of the pill, and really his scores just helped by tackling. And there's going to be a week where he probably just doesn't tackle enough and drops to 20. He'll be must trade then. He's okay for now to hold on if you need to, but I wouldn't be trying to field him. I mean, this is out of desperation. It was bad. I think just McNeil going forward. McNeil was good. Scott was good if you have him. McRae played well in the seconds, but we wanted to play well in the firsts. And Collier Dawkins, who looked like he was going to be the must-have target, is a little bit of a scary option now for those looking to trade him in. So another 1 to 2 weeks of some of the Tiger injuries for their mids. But I think, from what I saw this game, he wasn't playing well enough to hold that spot once they come back. I mean, I know there's others like Ross that could potentially go out of the side ahead of him, but Collier Dawkins is a bit of a one-trick pony when it comes to contested ball winning, and just wasn't doing enough of it to warrant selection for mine in a couple of weeks. So I don't think he's actually someone you want in, and it's a bit annoying that I have him, because he could end up being a dead rookie. Grundy and Gordon were both great. I had concerns over both of them this week, and they both showed up. I mean, you should just VC and see them every week. I don't know. We say this once at least every year, where we need to learn the lesson. Sometimes it happens more than once, but yeah, they were both great. And actually this week, Melbourne play Carlton, and I believe Pitnet has had some type of injury. So I think like Gawn as a captain is a great option this week. And then, Gawn did all right against Hickey, but Hickey's been hard to score against traditionally. So I still don't think I'm going to go there. Instead, one of the North defenders against Hawks looks like that could be some good scoring. Otherwise, yeah, I'm going to have to think about the VC option. And Flynn, look, he is only going to play games when Mumford gets a rest. That was all the news out of this week. So it'll be 2 to 3 games for Mumford as long as he feels okay. He'll have a rest. Flynn will come in. So we should get another price rise or two out of him before the buys. That's what I'm holding on because there's still a lot of money left to make. And then once that kind of next price rise comes through, feel free to get rid of him. So in the forward line, Zeeble, yeah, as I mentioned, was on track for a bigger score. A little bit disappointing that he had a knock. Impey has continued to be amazing. Just love the work he puts in. Don't get me started on Tex. That is so frustrating. And then Warner looks like he's going to bleed a little bit of money, but he's still putting out 60s, and I just need that security in my forward line, so we'll take it. Rowe had a big game in the showdown, actually 80, which is really nice, and knowing his scoring pattern, he's going to back that up with like a 20 or 30 against West Coast this week. He seems to only do it in Adelaide Oval as well, and they're playing away this week, so you probably don't want to field him. Brockman apparently took goal of the year and mark of the year in the seconds, and a bit like McRae, just come in and do it in the first for me, please. We need that cash. And then Jones was really great. 2 weeks in a row now where he's kind of been a little bit MIA for the first 3 quarters, starting most of it off the bench, actually, and then coming on. And then he gets to play all the fourth quarter, and both those games he's come on and done really well. He kicked 2 goals in the comeback, as well as providing a goal assist, and was really good. If Essendon had got home, maybe that score goes even higher, but it's just nice that he's making a bit of money now. And then finally, Waterman. So he had an ankle tweak on the weekend. He was a test to play, but Essendon had the VFL bye, so didn't get an opportunity to see if he would get up. But the big news out of Essendon's game on the weekend was Stringer doing a hamstring. It is apparently a light hamstring, which is a 1 to 2 week injury, apparently. We will probably get more news on that this week, especially as scans come through. But the good news for Waterman owners is that means he is likely the replacement for Stringer. I say likely because he should have been played so far from what we've seen and what we've heard, but hasn't necessarily been given the opportunity. And our sub Guelphy did really well. He came on end of the third and I think led Essendon for tackles by the end of in 1 quarter, he led Essendon for tackles. And this is the side that averages the most tackles for the year, right? We're a good tackling side, and he still out-tackled the team in 1 quarter. So I'm not sure whether or not Waterman definitely comes in, but that is the obvious like-for-like replacement for Stringer. So there's a good chance he gets up this week. All right, so I promised that we would go through the notes from last week's film review. I obviously can't do the film review itself, because we'll get copy strike and copyrighted by the AFL, which I definitely don't want. So instead, we'll just pull up this image and go through effectively how I rated each of the forward options at the end of last week. And you can see why I'm frustrated, because the one I ranked number 1, the one I wanted to get in, and the one I missed out on by a handful of money was Aaron Hall, who scored big on the weekend. What was it that he put up? Let's have a quick look. It was a 113. Great. So he just went up just the 4K. So if you haven't been on Hall, or you don't know much about Aaron Hall, obviously he started at Gold Coast, moved to North in the last few years. He's was on an absolute heater at one point in his career, but injuries, amongst other things, have held him back, including breaks for mental health. The big change this year that he now makes him relevant is he got moved behind the ball after round 2 or 3, I want to say, and he's had 3 full games behind the ball, with a concussion mixed in for and a sub score and a concussion mixed in for amongst those, which is why he's so cheap at the low 400s. But in the 3 full games he has played across halfback, he's had 33 touches, and 37 touches, I believe, on the weekend. So averaging roughly 34 touches. And his Supercoach scores were, I think he's had like a 130 something. The 113 we just looked at, and another low 100s. He's averaging like 117 for Supercoach over those 3 games. He is, as I say here, he's like Zeeble 2.0, which is this tough midfielder that's got some injury concerns, moved behind the ball, all of a sudden just racking it up. I think the big difference between Zeeble and Hall is that they actually like using Hall as the person that takes on the game and is the kick out of defense. So Zeeble looks to Hall so Hall can distribute. Now, he's going to lose some points when he gets like clangers out of defense, but he's just getting the volume of touches and possessions that make him such a good risk at the 400k price point. So obviously the downside to this pick is that he gets injured. That's the real big downside, and he does have some injury history. I think the promising thing from what I've seen is since 2019, he had, I think in that preseason, some knee concerns, but then it was like mental health break for most that year. Last year he didn't have an injury; he just got dropped from form for playing like a half forward role. And then this year, there was some talk of an abductor strain or like precautionary thing in the preseason, but that never really eventuated. And then like concussion is what held him out. So it seems like, you know, before that he did have, I think, like pec issues, some soft tissue stuff, but that really hasn't been what's held him back the last 2 or 3 years. So with being moved behind the ball, taking that like less physical role, hoping that helps him a little bit as well, and we actually get to see him from here the rest of the year, because could be a 110 average for 400k in the forward line. That is the risk that I want to take, especially the position I'm in. But the downside risk is real. So going through the others that I was pretty big on. So Marshall, I didn't think he was a must-have just because of the bye and Ryder would limit him, but we saw a really good score out of him on the weekend. Obviously, if you get that ruck forward swing going, it's great cover for your rucks. And this is something we're all planning for at the start of the year. For me, the reason why I wasn't going to get him pre-buys is because of Tex, and now with Tex going, I can actually look at Marshall as a real option. But yeah, he backed that up on the weekend. And then Zorko I had. I don't think the Neil going out really affected him, but he does take that leadership role. He is an important part. The only risk with him is age and some soft tissue injury starting to creep in. I think he'd already missed a game of that this year with Achilles, which is not a friendly, Supercoach friendly injury. But once again, had another great game on the weekend. I do think that average between 90 and 105 is about where he's at. So definitely like him as an option. Bolton, so safer than the 3 above him regarding injury history, and he's scored well in back-to-back weeks now, but very much concerned when Dusty, Impressio and Lambert come back. I'm not concerned about Ussity emerging whatsoever. But yeah, I just think that he will continue to score well until the other mids are back, and then you're going to see him get parked forward a lot more where he's looked the most dangerous. I mean, he's kicked, is it 3 goals in the last 2 weeks, or 2 and 3 goals, and still then he hasn't like pumped out 150s with 3 goals and mid-time. It's actually reasonably low 100. So I think we're going to see regression. And then Bailey Dale, one of those forwards converted defender, great kicking, great decision-making, looks great out of the halfback for the Dogs. The big concern or the big knock I had on him was when there's Daniel and Williams in the defence as well, you have all 3 of them being able to take great kicks, all being great distributors, great decision makers. They don't need to heavily rely on one. They share kickouts, and that limits the upside. Interesting thing from the weekend, still have Williams out with the collarbone, but then Daniel was actually up the ground, kind of like in the midfield, tagging, doing a whole bunch of weird and wonderful stuff, which meant Bailey Dale got to take kickouts and be the main distributor, which was great for his scoring. But I don't think that's the full-on game plan for the Dogs for the rest of the year. There's so much uncertainty, so he does rate below the other 4. And then just below them, I guess I had Atkins, Hind, Stringer, and Bailey. Atkins and Hind have the same knock. They're going to play great games, but they just don't have the ceiling, and they are going to drop stinkers. Atkins had a stinker on the weekend. Hind had a pretty good game for the Bombers, actually. But even though it was probably his best game for us so far this year, still only a 95. You just don't have that ceiling, especially in a team that is going to lose as much as Essendon. Stringer, I didn't rate highly, and he's injured, which hurts even more. And then finally, Bailey scored actually quite well on the weekend, but the initial hype and excitement I had behind him wasn't backed up by what was on tape. He just didn't get as many CBAs as I thought he was getting or was going to get with Neil out and Berry out. Got off him. And so anyway, this is the film review we did during last week. And it's actually great to be able to review this straight away after a weekend's worth of data. And honestly, the top 5, I wouldn't change those rankings. I think those are still spot on. So if you're looking at some of these cheaper options, and some of them aren't that cheap anymore. I mean, I know Marshall never got cheap, but Zorko's up near 500 now. Bolton's up near 500 now. But yeah, those kind of the rankings. So if you want to get amongst this stuff, you really should be in the Discord. We do a bunch of great research and things like that during the week, as well as helping each other's teams out. Unfortunately, can't help mine, but maybe we can help yours. All right, so then leading off the back of this, what are my trades for this week? What am I thinking about? Well, obviously, I need to fix my forward line. I need to get rid of Tex. And the person that I have rated number one as someone that's worthy of the risk is Aaron Hall. So that's easy trade done. And then I guess the other thing for me here is once this loads. So with the money that I have left over from that from the double downgrade last week, I could try and force some type of other upgrade this week. But from what we can see so far, the debutants, Supercoach really isn't liking me. What we've seen from this week is the Supercoach, there you go, horsing. So the debutants this week weren't particularly great, didn't set the world on fire. It doesn't look like there will be a great downgrade option next week, which is a little bit scary. So if you're in a position to, I would probably be downgrading this week. Unfortunately, I would like to double upgrade or a sideways and upgrade, but I just think that I'm going to have to keep the cash gen going. I need to keep fixing these rookies, so I'm going to do another downgrade. And yeah, if you're not going Collie Dawkins, which is not my number one target, it would be Poulter. Now, Collingwood don't get to play North every week, and in fact, Sydney much harder matchup this week. So that's, I don't expect the big scores to keep up. But he was the standout from the weekend. Scored an 80, playing on that wing role for Collingwood. With them kind of rebuilding, I expect him to stay on. They were even putting him in media stuff, I think Footy Show and that type of thing after the game. The DPP helps as well. So for me, my decision is really going to be around, do I want to get rid of Berry? Do I want to get rid of Brockman? And then I think that's about it. Like, there's no one else that I'm really going to trade. Rose can make some more money. I don't want to get rid of Warner because I want the points. So let's just say it's Berry for now. But I mean, if Brockman's not named, it's probably Brockman. So this is really frustrating. And the reason why is I could have had Tex and Hall this week instead of like Brockman here or Jones here. But with Tex scoring as badly as he just has to go. And now I'm definitely a full premium behind and I'm sitting on a bunch of money that I can't use. So yeah, super tough. And this year isn't going to go as well as I'd hoped it was, especially after the good start. But I'm sure there's still a lot we can do to recover from here. So other options. So Cozzy is a great option against North. Who has the last? I think I can use Murphy as a loophole. They play the second game, so I can front that loop. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I think it's probably just Cozzy on the field. In the mids, I do want to play Poulter, I think, but it's probably Poulter over Brockman. And then I'm going to try and loop if I can. No, maybe I can't because I think Dogs and Richmond play on the Saturday night, only 20-30 minutes game apart, because I could do something like loop these two together. But if I just have to make a decision on one, I think it's going to be Neil. And actually, I'm not even sure those loopholes work because those have played earlier. So I think it's something like that. Dogs play Port, which is somewhat tough matchup. So maybe we don't get this good scoring. And Richmond play GWS. We've been in pretty good form. And then finally forward line. So yeah, definitely playing Poulter. I guess I'm pretty certain he's not going to back this up. And Freo's defenders are still pretty injury prone. So maybe I do something crazy like that. Ugh. It's actually really frustrating because I can't loophole effectively almost any of the players that I want to this week. Well, if Waterman's back, I probably would just play him. Yeah. And then finally, vice captain option. So I think Gawn is locked and loaded. I think the default, if I can't find anyone, it's going to be Grundy, especially with depending on how the loopholes work this week, because early game for Hawks, early game for Collingwood, early game for St Kilda. It doesn't really leave me much. I guess Waterman, if he doesn't play, is a loop, or Flynn's the loop. Oh. Yeah, it could even be this. It could even be Hall. Crazy, I know. So that is my team. That is the round 8 review done. Please let me know how you did. what decisions you're struggling with, what you'd like advice on, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you again for 1,000 subs. I really appreciate it.